Hi, Simon Gorza at RIO Products, talking about one of my passions, spay casting. I like the spay game. If you're a spay fisherman, you're going to sometimes fish Scandis, you're going to sometimes fish Skagit lines, you're going to sometimes fish traditional lines. You know, there's a bunch of lines you're going to fish. And we've come out with this cracking series of lines called the Skagit Max GameChanger. What it is a series of multi-density Skagit lines. I'll give you an example, then I'll tell you why they are. This one, as you can kind of see the colors on this, there's this orange, which is floating, and then there's this glacier color, which is a hover, so it sinks about 1 inch a second, and then there's this light blue color here, which is intermediate, which sinks about 2 inches a second. So there's 3 densities in that one. This one has floating, same hover, same intermediate, and then the brown here is a sink 3, 4 densities. This is also a 4 density, floating, intermediate, sink 3, sink 5. So what that is when you design a fly line to cast, energy flows down the line as you cast it. And energy, as long as you have a taper, then the energy just kind of flows down. And what interrupts it is when you change densities and diameter. So a floating line is usually quite fat and a sinking line is usually quite thin. So where a sink tip joins to a floating line, you have a very big diameter discrepancy usually, and just to maintain weight. So it's a complicated process. If you design fly lines, you'll understand it. And it kicks. So most people, when they cast sinking lines and sink tips, find there's a little bit of a kicking process. So to eliminate that, if you transition between different densities, you'll get a much smoother loop. And that's what we've done here with these game changers. You get a much smoother casting loop, and you get a much better fishing presentation, because instead of having a floating line with a sink tip that pivots down like this, you have a much smoother transition down to the depths. So basically we made these game changers that they're easier casting lines, they're smoother casting lines, and they're a lot better fishing lines as a result. They do need tips and they do need running lines, right? They're a shooting head. So on the back end you need a running line, a shooting line of some kind, and on the front end you need a tip of some kind. Generally speaking, you want a sinking tip to get down here, because of course these are sinking sections. You don't want a floating tip on the end of this, so you have to fish a sinking tip. And on a sink tip on here, this FHI swings around 2 to 3 feet down. That's a kind of good depth to get with that, with an intermediate tip. The one with a sink 3 fishes 4 or 5 foot down, something like that, with a type 8 T8 tip or a T14 tip. And the real dredger, the one with a sink 5 tip, this is the one that goes down 10 or 12 feet. This one was my winter line all last winter, and boy, can you fish some really deep holes in that and get really slow swings with all these lines. It sits under the surface and under the hydraulics. So that is the Skagit Max Game Changer. As I said, that's our new line from here. It's going to go from 450 grains right up to 700, so it covers all the spectrum of rod sizes. And another new product that goes really well with this is our metered shooting line. So we've had the Connect Core shooting line for some time, a couple of years now. It's my favorite shooting line of all. I like the low stretch properties of it. But what this is metered. In other words, every 10 feet it changes color. Guess what that means? You know how far you cast. You actually know how far you really cast, not you think you cast. So maybe you're kind of an ego buster on that. This is a bit of a shame for some people. You might think you're casting 100 feet and you count 3 colors outside the rod. You know you've only got 30 feet of shooting line. So that's a metered shooting line. Where I find this really successful is if you're fishing your way down a pool and you've caught a fish or you hook a fish, you played your fish, you land your fish, you get out to the spot. If you had 4 color changes outside the rod, it's real easy to go straight back and drop in the slot and fish your way down the pool. So I really like this Connect Core metered shooting line. And if you're a Skagit angler and you fish sinking tips, check out the new Skagit Max Game Changer, because this is an awesome fishing line. And this is all new for RIO for 2019.